As you wrap up a complete draft of your paper, I want to revisit the research criteria established in the rubric and talk about how you can use your paper and your works cited list to demonstrate that you've met those criteria. So here are the three criteria. One is about range, one is about the quality of your documentation, and the third is about fairness. And what we're talking about here is an extensive investment in research. The research for your paper should not have been something you did in a couple hours. You've had a couple weeks to work on this paper, the first week of which was entirely devoted to research. So there should be a substantive body, and there should be demonstration either in the paper or in an annotated works cited that you've gone to a lot of places, that you've checked out the Career Center resources, the library and web resources, that you haven't taken the easy path and you've invested yourself in a significant research project. Secondly, are you using the library MLA page to document all the different kinds of sources that you're finding? And then that's simply a matter of getting to the page, using the tools on the page to get you the correct format, and then integrating your information into that. And you can get some source engine to help you do that, and there are links to all of those on the library page. And you also can use the librarians themselves through library visits or the text a question function on the library page to get help. So it's really just a matter of investing a little time and taking a little initiative to get those sources correctly documented. And finally, fairness. There's two elements of fairness. One is, are you properly citing, quoting, paraphrasing? And the other is, are you using material in a way that's fair to the material and using material that's credible for the paper? So when we think of range of research, we're really thinking about two things: scope and the types. So the scope means it needs to really be extensive, wide-ranging, and creative. The types are where we talk about the Career Center, the library, and the web. And the big question you have to ask yourself is, how many of my sources do I use in my paper? Do those sources demonstrate the scope and the types of research I did? If the stuff you actually used in the paper doesn't do that, if you ended up using a very narrow set of sources, then use your works cited to include material that you didn't use in the paper but does demonstrate the scope of the research that you did. And you can use annotations of those various sources to say what you found, what was there, and why you decided not to use it. So an annotated works cited is a tool for documenting the quality of your research and making sure you've achieved the three criteria set forth in the rubric. In general, what you do is you create a traditional citation, and then you add a short paragraph below it, maybe 3 or 4 sentences max, usually 3. One sentence sort of summarizes the source. Another sentence evaluates the source. How credible was it? How valuable was the information? And finally, you're going to take a sentence to explain the applicability. Why did you or did you not use it in your paper, even though that you discovered it? And what this is about is concisely communicating the scope of your research, letting me know that you did achieve the scope and range requirements of the paper, even though maybe you only ended up using 2, 3, or 4 sources in the paper. Fairness. This is where we get a little bit of a conversation going about the importance of correctly citing, paraphrasing, and quoting. So just to lay out a couple rules to think about, you're really going to always cite your sources. So whether you put the idea in your own words, or you use quotes, or you mix your own words with quotes, you're always citing where you found this information. In a research paper in particular, you didn't have prior information, so pretty much all the facts that you discuss in your paper, if they're going to be credible, have to come from somewhere, and then therefore need to be documented, where you got them from. You want to know the difference between a paraphrase, a quote, and a mix of the two. A paraphrase, entirely your words. A quote, any and all words you've taken from somewhere else. And a mix of the two, which is what most people do, is some of their own language mixed with language from the source. It's fine to do that, but any and all of the exact words from the source that you've mixed in with your own words need to be quoted. So there should be a mix of paraphrase, quotation, and the sample paragraph that I presented for this paper, the sample paragraph I presented for the first paper as well, and the sample papers all model that, and it's a real important skill to have. So just remember, put any and all exact words from a source in quotes, and then you can't go wrong. All right, let's look at this in the sort of the graphic summary here. If you have an idea, a quote or fact from a source, you're always going to provide an in-text citation and a works cited citation. So anytime this is not your own knowledge, your own prior to the research knowledge, you are going to cite in text and in the works cited. So think about, before I researched this paper, what did I know? After I researched it, what did I know? If I include anything from after I researched the paper, I need to cite it in the paper and in the works cited. Now, if you use entirely your own words to summarize something that you found in a source, that's called a paraphrase. And in that case, you still need to provide an in-text citation and a works cited citation. You don't need quotation marks, but you still need the citations, in-text and works cited. Now, if you use any exact words from the source, and obviously I don't mean the and or basic articles and conjunctions, but any phrasing really at all, really anything, you need to put it in exact quotes. Really important, because if you don't put it in exact quotes, you're telling the reader, I made this up. And the fact is that you're getting words from somewhere else. And so you need to signal that what you've written is a mix of your words and someone else's words by quoting those exact words that come from where you're using them. And then, of course, having an in-text and a works cited citation. And finally, if you mix paraphrase and citation, it's really just what I was talking about. It's just so important to any words from your original source that you've integrated in with your own language still need to be quoted within that context. So you're going to have a mix of phrases that are unquoted, yours, and phrases and words that are quoted from the source in your sentences. And those are terrific sentences. That's a great research skill. But it's so important to properly quote anything that's exactly from your source, any words that you got from there, and then of course have your in-text and works cited citation regardless of what you do, right? So whether you paraphrase or quote or mix, you're always including a citation. Okay. Those are some of the basic principles I want you to think about and review in your paper as you finalize it, and ask yourself, am I doing these things? Am I meeting those criteria? Thanks so much. See you out there in the course.